मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यश्छन्दसामृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया आस्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवं ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिः पृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमितमस्मि द्रविणगुं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इतीर्थशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः आप्यायन्तु मम अङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुः श्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः वाङ् मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एधि वेदस्य मानीस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधितेन अहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रं नो अपि वातय मनः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितन्यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यो ब्रह्मानं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तगुं हि देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Narayanam Padma Bhuvam Vasishtam Shaktim Chatputrapurasharam Cha Vyasam Shukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogindra Mathasya Shishyam Shri Shankaracharya Mathasya Padmapadam Cha Hasta Malakam Cha Shishyam Tam Totakam Vartikakaram Anyanasmat Gurun Santato Manatosmi Om Vishwam Darpana Dishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyanatmani Mayaya Bahirivodbhutam Yatha Nidraya Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanam Evadvayam Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Bijasyantarivankuro Jagadidam Prang Nirvikalpam Punaha Maya Kalpita Desha Kala Kalana Vaichitrya Chitri Kritam Maya Viva Vijrambhayatyapi Mahayogi Vayasvechaya Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Yasyaiva Sphuranam Sadatmakam Asatkalparthakam Bhasate Sakshat Tattvamasiti Vedavachasa Yo Bodhayatyashritan Yat Sakshat Karanad Bhavenna Punaravrittirbhavambho Nidhau Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Nana Chidraghatoddarasthita Mahadeepa Prabhabhaswaram Jnanam Yasya Tu Chakshuradikarnadvara Bahispandate Janamiti Tameva Bhantamanubhatye Tatsamastam Jagat Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Deham Pranamapi Indriyanapi Chalam Buddhim Cha Shunyam Viduhu Stri Balanda Jadopamastvam Bhranta Bhrisham Vadinaha Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Mahavyamoha Samharine Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. So today we will continue on with the revision of the Fourth Sutra. And the Fourth Sutra, let's chant all the four sutras. Athato Brahma Jigyasa Janmadyasya Yataha Shastrayo Nitvat Tattu Samanvayat. So the Fourth Sutra is the Tattu Samanvayat. And as we mentioned in the last class, this is a really an important sutra in the sense that it in fact is the summary of the entire chapter. So there are 4 chapters in Brahmasutra, and the first chapter is called Samanvaya Adhyaya. And so this is the Samanvaya Adhyaya. It's an important sutra, and also we should understand, and I'll point it out as we go along today, that the sutras mirror our experiences. This is a point I wanted to just make. So, I mean, we have talked about this, that instead of looking at it academically as just information which is the word I think I really like. Swami Tattvavidananda was the one who really articulated it that way. Instead of just looking at it information, we should really look on it as vidya, as knowledge. And knowledge in the sense that it applies the way we lead our life. Really speaking, all of the discussions, the arguments that are being presented here, sometimes many of you feel, many of us, I wouldn't say you, all of us, feel that, well, it's going through a lot of technicalities. Why do all that? Well, it is because it is the technicality discussions, the Purva Paksha Siddhanta, arguments, counter-arguments, counter-arguments, all of those really mirror in a very technical way, in a very not technical is the right word, in a structured way, our own life's experiences. This is exactly how we feel, and I'll point this out as we go through today. So that's an important thing for us to look at as we study the Brahmasutra. It is not just, okay, I've done Brahmasutra also, I've done this also, but to understand that this is an attempt for the wise people to let us know that please view your life this way. If you want to really get to the very bottom of it, here's what you are going to go through. It's like a journey where you say you're going to see this, you're going to see this, exactly like that. Anyway, so that's just an opening statement I wanted to make. So, in the last class we saw, which is the essence of the Fourth Sutra, Tattu Samanvaya, that indeed Brahman, which is our own reality, my reality, each one of our reality. This is us, this this is me. Brahman is me. Aham Brahmasmi is the final appreciation. Anytime I see the word realization, I replace it with appreciation. This is something we need to appreciate, that Brahman is my own nature. So we saw in the last class that Brahman indeed is the Tatparya of the entire Vedas. It is called Samanvaya. As we know, if I can remind you, the definition of Samanvaya is Tatparya Nishchaya. Ascertainment, Nishchaya means ascertainment of the main essence of Brahman, or a main essence of Vedas here is Brahman. Brahman is the one that the whole Vedas, the entire study of the Vedas, is intended to teach us, hey, the way you're leading your life is you're making something which should be trivial into very important. Exactly like a dream. A dream is just some very strange phenomenon. It looks real, but then it disappears. And the life is exactly like that. The dream is just an upalakshana. It's just a example of the way we should view our life. And our life is really much more trivial, much more transient, unimportant than we make it out to be. We are so busy. Oh, I've got to do this is my life and my children and my spouse, all that. We're so serious about all that. And the Vedas say, Hello, can I tell you something? I know you're getting involved with all of this, and you are, but this is not what it is all about. It is all about an understanding of Parameshwara as Ishvara, who is really uh, one who is above all issues, all problems, and that is you. So you should see that you are isolating yourself from Ishvara. Don't do it, please. See God to be nothing but you alone, and let Him enter your heart. If you do that, you'll find that the rest of the things disappear. This is what it's talked about. This is the Tatparya of the Brahman. Okay? And so we saw that people say, how can you determine that Brahman is the Tatparya? And then we say, because let us look at what is the central theme of anything. Like in Bhagavad Gita, as we saw, there were so many different topics. What is the main topic? The main topic of Bhagavad Gita is Brahman. And how do we know that? Because Gita is a specially case. It's a very interesting thing because you have so many different chapters, and then the emphasis is on karma, and Arjuna is confused, and there's all kinds of Vishwarupa, 11th chapter, all kinds of things are given, sarva karma sannyasa, all issues. The Tatparya has to be ascertained. It is done through a very carefully constructed filter. The filter is upakrama, upasamhara, abhyasa, apurvata, phalam, arthavada and upapatti. We saw all that. That if you really have a set of filters that says, what is it repeated? Is it stalked out in the beginning and in the end? Is it is praised? Is there logic to it? You look at all of that, and at the end of that you say, yep, none of the other way. You take this filter and you say, this doesn't apply here. It applies to no other thing except when it comes to Brahman. It fits. So that's what it is. So he says that we can now say, we can add some words to the Fourth Sutra, which says, Tat Samanvayat Brahman eva Vedasya Vishaya. So Tat Samanvaya, let's take the word tu out for a minute. We'll spend the rest of the class on the word tu. But before that, you take Tat Samanvayat. Brahma, because it is the Tatparya, Tat Samanvayat, is the fifth case of Samanvaya. Because it is the Samanvaya, therefore Brahman eva Vedasya Vishaya. This is the final sentence of the essence of the Fourth Sutra, which is the essence of the Vedas. Okay. Now let us come to the word tu. And this is going to be a very interesting revision. And as we do the revision, please see your life being reflected in the discussions of the revision. Okay, so let's go into that. So, as we saw, the word tu is vyavritti purvapaksha artha. Vyavritti purvapaksha artha. So, purvapaksha means doubts and objections. So, there is a difference between doubts and objections. Doubts mean you are not turning your face away from what is being said, and yet you have a quizzical look on your face because you want to understand it but you don't yet. This is called a doubt. An objection is one which says, I don't care what you say. This doesn't make any sense to me. I'm going to do something else. It's called an objection. So the Purva Paksha is really more for an objection. Because as long as the student and the sadhaka is willing to clear all the doubts and it gives you the shraddha, then it's okay. That is a normal process. But to turn away from it means that you have made up your mind and there's no use trying to get you back. Okay, fine, do whatever you want to. So here, even though it is a Purva Paksha, but it includes both the sections in that sense. So here we saw that the doubters, now we take sort of like doubters with a minority of objectioners. Mostly doubters, but minority of objectioners, consisting of 6 schools of thought, which is divided into 3 segments. So we've seen all this, but I'm just revising it for you. What are the 6 schools of thoughts? Sankhya, Yoga, Vaisheshika, Nyaya, Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa. And then these are segmented into 3 segments. Sankhya and Yoga are cousins. So there are 3 sets of cousins. Cousins meaning that they are very close to each other. They are different from each other but still close to each other. And so the Sankhya are ones who do not really look at the supremacy of God. They think that nature is the God, not God is the God. This is Sankhya. Yoga says, no, that's not true. We understand that nature is very important, time is important, karma is important, but really you cannot have it without God. So yoga is what is called Saishwara Sankhya, and Sankhya is Nirikshana Yoga. So these 2 are cousins. Then you have the next segments, Vaisheshika and Nyaya. And again there are some small differences between them, but they are cousins. And the best way to look at Nyayikas and Vaisheshikas are, they are kind of like the modern science. And the modern science says, prove it to me. Where is the proof? What is the, how do I segment it? And how do I get to the very bottom of it through these fundamental particles? They're all looking for fundamental particles. More or less, I'm just giving you a view of the Vaisheshika and Nyaya. So these are the 2 cousins in the second segment. Third segment is Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa. And the Purva Mimamsa also believe in the Vedas. We will see how, as the Uttara Mimamsa, which is us, which is the Vedantins, they both believe in the Vedas, but in a different way. We already saw in the last class that one of the things that the Purva Mimamsakas do is to say we don't need Ishvara. Karmas alone, mantras alone, not only karmas, but mantras from the Vedas alone give you what you want. And so to which the Vedantins say, what are you talking about? Who is the one who is doing the ucharana of the mantra? Who is the one who is chanting the mantra? Is the mantra doing it on its own? And he says, yeah, the mantra does it on own. I don't know, I was just thinking about this. I'll give you one kind of like a funny example. So somebody gave us a gift a couple of years back which is kind of like the Roomba, you know, which works to clean your, picks up all the dirt from your surface, the carpeted surface, wooden surface or something. Somebody gave us a kind of like a high-end version of that. It's called Goofy. It's pretty expensive. It's like $200, and my wife's one of my wife's clients just said, we love this and we want you to have it. So they gave it to us, and I haven't really using it very much. But recently, because our granddaughter has been coming and she crawls all over the place, and there's the floor should be even cleaner. In between the cleaning coming, I decided I'm just going to start using this on my own. And so I set it all up and so on. It's a funny thing because you have to make sure that it doesn't get into any of the cables that are lying down there. Otherwise, it gets all sorted. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff to it. You have to make it. But then if you turn it on, it is phenomenal. It does things on its own. It doesn't go over the steps. It knows there is enough intelligence and it says, oh, this is a step, I cannot fall. It comes back. Then it goes through all the areas very intelligently and so on. So I was thinking it is kind of like what the Karmakandins say about mantras. So the Karmakandins think that this is kind of like the Roomba. That is intelligent enough. It cleans. It does what it needs to be done. So there are various mantras which says Jyotishtoma Swargakama Yajeta. If you are a Swargakama, means that if you have the desire to go to heaven, then do this Jyotishtoma Yajna you have to do. And so this is exactly like if you want to clean this area, then make the Roomba go over here. And so it will do it for you. You don't have to do anything. So the Roomba is the supreme one. Does the Roomba work without a designer? In fact, the Roomba needs two kinds of people who are Chaitana, who are conscious. And one is the designer, and the other one is the operator like me. If I don't, I'm the one that picks up the Roomba, okay, you go here, and then it goes by itself. So similarly, the Vedantins tell the Karmakandins that the chanting of the mantras in the yajnas, pardon me, in these is effective. We don't object to that. The mantras work, no question, but not by itself. It is through the conscious entity. It's like a machine. Anyway, I just thought I'll give you that analogy that came to my mind. So anyway, so now we have the third segment of Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa. Okay? So now let's go into the more details of it. And I'll try to keep it not too much detail. The godfather of Purva Mimamsakas is Jaimini. And Jaimini, who was apparently a contemporary of Vyasacharya, and eventually he understood that the Purva Mimamsa, all of the Karma Kanda, does not give you moksha now, but prepares you for moksha. This is what all the commentators have said, that the best they could see is that Jaimini was not really opposed to it, to the vidya, to the knowledge, but nevertheless his emphasis was on karma, not on knowledge. Later on, this position got hardened, which we will see now. But anyway, this is Jaimini. There is a very famous sutra in the Karma Sutra, in the Jaimini Sutra, which should be understood by us. It's a very famous one, and we should kind of like understand it, possibly commit it to heart, which gives the sanction of the karma to all the karma kandins. And this is an important part, and we are going to now get into that. That sutra is Amnayasya Kriyarthatvat Anarthakyam Atadarthanam. This is the sutra. Amnayasya Kriyarthatvat Anarthakyam Atadarthanam. What is the meaning of this sutra? We will now see. And this is an important one as it mirrors our life, as I mentioned early on, and we should keep it in mind. Okay, now let's go into the arguments. So as I said that in the beginning, it appears that Jaimini accepted that karma is meant for chitta shuddhi, for purifying the heart, not directly for moksha. So indirectly it leads to moksha because it makes your thinking as subtle as it is required for moksha. This is what Jaimini understands that. Later on, his disciples hardened their position to say no. In fact, you don't need knowledge. Karma alone will give you what you want. And so there are two of them, so-called Bhattamata and Prabharaka Mata. So Bhatta and Prabharaka are the two such people. Okay? All right. So now we say, here is what their central arguments are about the nature of all of the Vedas. The entire Vedas, they look upon it as segmented into two parts. So look at this very carefully. They say, and we agree with this. It's nothing, we are okay with it. But the way they present it hardens their position. And what they say is that the entire Veda consists of two types of sentences. All the Vedas are in the form of sentences. Either poetic sentences or prose, doesn't matter. But the combination of words in a sentence. So sentence is called Vakya. So Pada is called as a word and Vakya is called a sentence. So the entire Vedas are consisting of two types of sentences. What are those? Number one is what is called Siddha Bodhaka Vakya. Siddha Bodhaka Vakya. Siddha Bodhaka Vakya means, Bodhaka means one that makes you understand. Vakya you already know, it's called a sentence. So the Bodhaka means that one which gives you the knowledge about. Siddha. Siddha means one which is already there. Siddha Bodhaka Vakya means a knowledge about things as they are. Like for example, you say this is a cell phone. Because sometimes there might be a child and you say, what is this? Then you say, this is a cell phone. So this is a cell phone is a Siddha Bodhaka Vakya, which says this is what it is, nothing more to it. That's what it is. It's called, so the entire Veda consists of two types of sentences. One of them is called Siddha Bodhaka Vakya, which is what Vedanta is, by the way. So Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi is Siddha Bodhaka Vakya. Okay, this is one. Then the second one is called Karya Bhodaka Vakya. Karya Bhodaka Vakya means this should be done. Karya means what karma that needs to be done, what should be done. What is wanted to be done is called Karya. So one which gives information about what needs to be done is called Karya Bhodaka Vakya. So, there is a sentence in the Vedas which says, Jyotishtoma Swargakama Yajeta. As I mentioned earlier. This is a Karya Bhodaka Vakya. Karya Bhodaka Vakya means if you have the desire to go to Swargaloka, to heaven, then you must do Jyotishtoma Yajna. Jyotishtoma Yajna is not an easy one. It's one of the most elaborate, difficult yajnas that you can perform. And it has to be done by people that have a lot of assets that they are willing to give away. This is a very interesting thing. First of all, you must earn the assets in this life. Money, cattle, whatever it is. Maybe some power, maybe some, maybe a position. Whatever. I don't know about all the details, but I'm just giving you the general sense of it. And then within this life, you must distribute it to others without any hold. Just give it away. So this is the essence of the Jyotishtoma Yajna, Homa. Jyotishtoma. If you want to go to heaven, this is a sure short method to do so. Heaven means next life, not in this life. You may feel okay, a little bit better than what you're doing now. But if you really want to go to Swargaloka, then this is what needs to be done. So this is what is called a Karya Bhodaka Vakya. And going to heaven is only one thing, but if there are so many other things that you want in this life, supposing you and your wife, you or your husband, either one depending on what gender you are in, they want to have you want to have a child and you're not able to do it through natural means, then there are certain mantras that enable you to do this. Amazing. So anyway, going back to it, it is said that both these types of vakyas are there. Okay? Now, this is one thing. Let us now look at another definition which all the Karmakandins and Vedantins, and in fact everybody else that has some faith in the Vedas. So this is what is called Astikas. Nastikas and Astikas. So Astikas are the ones that have Shraddha towards Veda, and Nastikas do not have any Shraddha towards the Vedas. Right? So those that have Shraddha towards the Vedas, they agree on a definition of what is called Pramana. Pramana means proof. Proof. And the definition of pramana is, this is another sentence that those of you that know a little bit of Sanskrit and are experienced students should really remember. You may not remember it by heart, but you should remember the importance of this particular sutra, just like in the case of Jaimini Sutras, amanayasya kriyarthatvat anarthakyam atadarthanam. That's an important mantra, sutra. This is another sutra, which is the definition of pramanam. Definition of pramanam is anadigatam abadhitam arthabodhakam phalavat pramanam. Anadigatam abadhitam arthabodhakam phalavat pramanam. This is the definition of pramanam. So what does it mean? Anadigatam. Anadigatam means one which cannot give you this knowledge any other way. In any other way you cannot get this knowledge. Like for instance, seeing is a pramanam. Seeing something. Then you say that, did you see a bread in the refrigerator? And you ask your spouse, oh, did you get this? So now you see the bread. You cannot, bread is maybe not a good example because you could even touch it. But let's say seeing something only is a pramanam which cannot be done any other way. You only have to see it through your eyes. Similarly, the smell is a pramanam. Your nose is a pramanam because we can tell you whether this is good or bad. This is what happens sometimes, the food smells bad even though it looks okay. Only the nose can tell this has been stored for a long time. Don't eat it. Nose can tell. So this way the nose and the eyes and the sense of touch and taste, all of these are pramanams. And they are unique pramanams that no one else can duplicate. This is the meaning of anadigatam. Therefore, the existence of Brahman, the existence of the Atma, which cannot be seen, which cannot be done in any other way, is the pramanam of the Veda pramanam for the Atma. Anadigatam. And another one is, the second word is abadhitam. Abadhitam means that one that cannot be contradicted by anyone else. So anadigatam means one which is not possible to be seen by something else, and abadhitam means one that cannot be contradicted by someone else. Here the example given is a very interesting one, very good example. It says, suppose the Shastra says, which it will never say, but suppose there is a word in the Shastra that fire is cold. The nature of the fire is cold. Coolness is the nature of the fire. Supposing the Shastra says that. Is it abadhitam? No. Why not? Because your experience tells you consistently that fire is hot. So that is not a pramana. That vakya, is not a Pramana Vakya. Why? Because it can be contradicted by your another, and that means that you, by sense of touch, you can, may not be able to seeing it. Fire cannot be cold, but certainly by going close to it, you say that's not true. So this is abaditam. Artha bodhakam. It must convey some meaning. Phalavat. Phalavat means it must be useful. It must have some value for you. That's the word I was looking for. It must be valuable. If that happens, then it is a pramana. Okay? Now we say, wait a second. So look at the arguments now that are going back and forth. So we tell the Purva Mimamsa, the Jaimini people, say, wait a second. Why don't you accept the Vedanta? So they say that's a very simple thing. I'll tell you what. Siddha Bodhaka Vakyas are not useful at all. Karya Bhodaka Vakya are useful. So, this is where the Phalavat is added to the Pramanam. It's one of the words of the Pramanam. It must be useful to you. What do we mean by that? Just by knowing something, it doesn't do anything to you. Because you can go to the doctor and you say, Doctor, I'm having this problem. I don't know what is wrong with me. Can you please tell me what's going on? The doctor examines you and conducts tests and perhaps asks for some diagnostic tests, EKG, this, that, or the other. At the end of that, he says, aha, we know what your problem is. They said, really? Tell me. So he says, here's what it is. I'm very sure about it. It has happened to other people. We have done the test. I wasn't sure about it until we did the tests. And now we know this is the problem. This is called knowledge of something which already is. This is called Siddha Bodhaka Vakya. Now, how useful is that to you? You say, oh, doctor, thank you so much. Wonderful. You've analyzed my, and so on and so forth. Thank you. The doctor said, but aren't you going to treat it? He said, no, I just want to know what my disease is. This is ridiculous. The reason you go to the doctor is that once you find out what the problem is, you now take the necessary steps to correct it. You have to take medicines, whatever you have to do. Taking the medicine is Kriya Arthaka Bodha. So they say that, really speaking, those portions of the Vedas that are Siddha Bodhaka Vakya, so all of the Vedantins are Siddha Bodhaka Vakya. I am Atma Brahma, and it is Anadi, Ishvara is like this, and so on, all the things that we talk about, this is all Siddha Bodhaka Vakya. So they say the Siddha Bodhaka Vakya, like knowledge of a disease, is useless until you do something. So the Sukha Prapti and Dukkha Nivritti is only done through Karya Bhodaka Vakya. And so you can summarize the definition. Siddha Bodhaka Vakya Nishprayojanani. There is no usefulness to it. Nishprayojanani. Karya Bhodaka Vakya tu Saprayojanani. They have a prayojana. They have some use for you. So this is how the Vedas are. This is why do something. Don't just know something. And really speaking, this is what I wanted to now close the loop from what I had said very early on in this class, that the discussion in the Brahmasutra, in the entire Veda Shastra, mirrors our life. Because how does it mirror our life? It mirrors our life, and this is an important thing for us to really grasp honestly, is that our life is tuned toward doing things. Not just knowing things. We have a normal, natural tendency that I've got to do something. As I'm here, just sitting here, I'm okay, but I'm not as happy as I want to be. Therefore, okay, I accept it, fine. So, what should we do? So I need to do something. Okay, do it. And it's not just once. The entire flow of our life, every event, every tendency, the whole life is full of doing one thing or the other. This is what our thinking is. And so the Jaimini Karma Kandins just make it structured and technically correct and say, you're right. Let me tell you, doing things in a very technical way. This is what all the Vedic Shastra is, going to the temple and doing all the yajnas and so on, and say, it's a continuation of doing. It confirms my tendencies anyway. So, this is what it is. This is what I'm going to say, that really the discussions that are occurring between Vedanta, Karmakand, the Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa needs to be very carefully looked at, because it really confirms what I normally do anyway, which is not getting me to where I want to be. This is the situation. If you are doing it anyway and you're successful, then do it. The problem is that the whole life passes and I'm not completely happy. I'm somewhat happier than before, or maybe unhappier than before, who knows. But my sense of fulfillment is not there. And not just you and I, you talk to anyone. Anyone who, supposing your job is interesting. This is something that I think, I just had an idea. This is a terrible idea, but I have an idea, which is there should be a research done by advanced PhD students. There should be a new course in the university which says you'll go to everyone that you can think of who is dying, very close to death, and you can define it. You can say it doesn't have to be within 10 minutes. It can be within 4 months. I'm very sorry to say this. One of my very good friends is in hospice care. and he is in his final. My wife and I went to see him 2 or 3 times, and it is a miracle that he is still surviving 2 months later, but he is almost gone. Anyway, going back to my example, you can put a PhD students and say, the job of the PhD students is to visit all dying people and interview them. Interview them and say, I'm very sorry that you are going, but I wanted to just get your best thoughts on your life. And what you will not find a single person who says, I did everything that I wanted to and I'm done and now I am just, that's it. There might come people that come close to it, and there also would be, I don't know what else there is going to be in the future. Anyway, let's not go into that. But the point is that if your tendency to lead your life focused on doing things and you're happy with it, please do. But chances are that somewhere in between you are saying, this is not working. I need to do something else. So we say that there's something funny going on here. So you cannot say that Siddha Bodhaka Vakyas are Nishprayojanani, and we'll tell you why in a minute. But anyway, I want to understand what your viewpoint is. And they say this is our viewpoint. So then we go further. We say, we have a question for you. You accept the Vedas as a pramana. They say, yes. Vedas, of course. I'm talking about Karmakandins now. Of course, we accept Vedas as a pramana. Everything that it says is. How can you expect the Vedas to how do you accept Vedas as a pramana when the portion of Siddha Bodhaka Vakyas are being rejected? Right? Look at this argument that we have. If you accept the Vedas as a pramana, then accept it. You cannot say, I only accept portions of it, the other portions I don't accept. Right? How is that? So they say, oh, okay, I understand. Alright, it's not that we completely reject Siddha Bodhaka Vakyas, but we think that it is indirectly supporting the Karya Bhodaka Vakyas. So we don't completely reject it, but we put it at a much lower level. How? Lower level means the things that are necessary for you to establish the supremacy of the Karya Bhodaka Vakyas. And so, for example, they say that you need to praise in a yajna, because in the case of Karmakanda, the yajna is the main thing. In yajna, there are 2 things required, actually more than 2, but 2 main things. One is the yajamana, the one who is doing the yajna, who goes to the temple and goes to the pujari and says, sir, I need to do the following things. I am turning 60 next year and I want to do a puja for my 60th year. So the pujari says, okay, all right, then please come and bring all these samagris, this, that or the other, and this puja will take 1 hour and it should be done early in the morning. Please make sure that you have your bath and etc. All those kinds of things. So this is called the yajamana. And the second one is the devata that you are praying to. So the Purva Mimamsaka says that the Siddha Bodhaka Vakyas, Vedanta Vakyas, we can just say Vedanta Vakyas now. Leave aside the more difficult way of saying Siddha Bodhaka Vakya. Vedanta Vakyas, all the sentences of Vedanta, they provide a praise for the Yajamana and the Devata. They provide the enthusiasm. They say, oh, you are the greatest. You are like God. It's just like, for example, supposing there is a 4-year-old boy who is, he comes to your home and he is just so active and he wants everything and this, that, or the other. It was interesting. This friend of ours who's nearly passing away, their daughter's kids came to visit us about 6 months ago. And they were like, one was 7 and the other one was 5. What bright kids. They went through the whole property and they said, can we look through the whole property? We said, normally children won't do that. They came in and they were full of says, okay, what do we want to do? We want to look at because I have some areas behind the home where you can go climb up the hill, and say, can we climb up the hill? I said, this is wonderful. There is somebody who wants to climb up our hill. And he came in and says, that was wonderful. Where else can we go? So if supposing there is a 40-year-old boy who comes in so bright, will say, my God, you're like a tiger. You're like a lion. So similarly here also, this is to praise the Yajamana and say, my God, you're like Ishvara. So they say that the Vedanta Vakyas are really indirectly responsible for praising what needs to be done. But otherwise they have no usefulness. So forget about anything else. So this is what is called Karta Stuti Artha and Devata Stuti Artha. Alone should be understood to be Vedanta. Otherwise, Vedanta Vakyas, because they are Siddha Bodhaka, are useless. This is the view of the Karmakandin. So now we can summarize this. So these are the views when we say Karmakandins. This is the view of the Bhatta Mata and Prabharaka Mata, which are the prominent strains of thought in the Karmakanda. They are now the prevailing ones. So they are the current thinking. But what they say is, karma alone will get you where you want to be, not jnana. I'm summarizing the same argument that we've done before. Okay? All right. Now then, there is, up to this point, both of these trains of thought through Bhatta Mata and Prabharaka Mata were together. Now there is a disagreement between them, which is an internal disagreement. They don't have a major one, but they have an internal disagreement. What is that internal disagreement? The Bhatta Mata says that any of the Vedanta Vakyas should be coupled with any of the Kriya Vakyas. Doesn't make any difference. You can just apply to any one of them. Whatever yajnas you are doing, you can just praise the Yajamana and say, you are like Ishvara. I think I was telling you this, Swami Dayanand, this is a very old example. This is, I think, on like this second or third visit by Swami Dayanandji to this country. Because his first visit was very short. Maybe it could have been in the first visit, which was in 1976. Anyway, he came here a few times and he was recounting this. I think I've told you this anyway, but just kind of fits this this scenario. He was going to Toronto to give a talk. Yeah, there is quite a bit of disciples. There are a lot of disciples in Canada, especially in the Toronto area, because Toronto has a lot of Indians. So Swamiji was going there to give a talk. And while he was at the airport, those days the Hare Krishna people were very active. And remember the old, you may have heard about this, if you're too young maybe you didn't. They used to carry copies of the Bhagavad Gita, just like Bible-toting people. These were Bhagavad Gita-toting people. And they would be dancing in the airports and Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, and all that. And they would be toting Bhagavad Gita and giving to people and say, you must do this, love everybody. You know, this is what they used to do very actively. And so one time Swamiji was sitting there just reading a newspaper or something, waiting for the plane. And so so one of these Hare Krishna people approached him and said, who are you, sir? Can I know what your name is? So he says, my name is Swami Dayananda. Okay, so what do you follow? What do you say? And this says, you know, I'm a Vedantin. Already there was some discussing around that. Then at the end of this, I think it was a woman who said, you should be ashamed of yourself. Swamiji said, really? I should be ashamed of myself? Why? You should be ashamed of yourself because calling yourself Ishvara, this is blasphemy. Swamiji says, no, I am, you know, and so he tried to, and this woman would not have anything. And he says, this is wrong with you. You guys think you are Ishvara and so on. You should really be you should be a praying to Ishvara. You cannot become Ishvara. It is so ridiculous. What are you talking about? And you become a Swami and tell everybody. And Swamiji said, okay, so I'm sorry. You please, you do what you want to do. Not something that you can be under. So this is exactly what it is. Now there was a disagreement between the Bhatta Matha and the Prabharaka Matha. The Prabharaka Matha says, no, any of the Vedantic Shastra cannot be dovetailed into any of the Karmakanda's Vakyas. There are portions of Karmakanda Vakyas that are Upasana Vakyas. So they are prayerful Vakyas. Doing a prayer is also karma. So they say that the Vedanta Vakyas should only be connected to Upasana Vakyas, not to the normal Kaika Karma Vakyas. This is this disagreement. It doesn't really matter to us how you disagree or not. It doesn't make any difference to us. It is kind of like, you know, there's a sales rep who says that you should be buying a electric car. Actually, this is becoming a big problem because the electric vehicle business is now coming up to the point where a lot of people don't know it, don't trust it, They're afraid of getting stuck and so on. They're comfortable with the gasoline cars because they've been used to it for a long time and so on. This is not just me, this is what the market research is, that people are not ready to buy more electric cars. And another reason, by the way, is this is interesting. This is a very real reason. The electric cars require so little maintenance that all the dealers are afraid that the major source of their revenue, which is fixing cars, will be taken away. So it's kind of like going back to this, the fighting between these two. It's kind of like there are salespeople in these dealerships who specialize in selling electric vehicles. So if you catch hold of them, they will sell you and say, my gosh, you're not going to go with a gasoline cars, are you? Because this is the latest thing. Look at Teslas and Ford, Mustang, Mach-E and all those kinds of cars. The gasoline guy says, no, absolutely not. You have no idea how much. He wants to sell you a gasoline car. So supposing you are a buyer, and these two guys are disagreeing with each other. In the end, you say, I don't even want a new car. I think my old one is working very fine. It doesn't matter to me how you disagree. So the Vedantin says, what your disagreements are, it doesn't bother me. I don't think either one of them matters to me. So this is the Vedantin's view. So all of these objections, and the most powerful objection is this Siddha Bhodaka Vakya versus Karya Bhodaka Vakyas. That by knowing things you do not solve a problem, you have to do something to solve a problem. And this mirrors my life. This is exactly how I think. So now the Vedantins give an answer. Up to this point, all of our discussion, by the way, in the Shankara Bhashyas and all the other Vyakhyas and so on, this sort of a discussion requires some learned people to sort out. This is very interesting. It's very difficult. When we went through all this, if a new student tries to read all these bhashyas and so on, you are not sure who is arguing against what. Where is the Purva Paksha? Where is the Siddhanta? The reason I'm saying that is that right now the Vedantin was playing defense and the Karma Kandin was playing offense. They were saying it doesn't make any sense, this doesn't make any sense, and we say, but wait a second, how do you accept? So we were playing kind of like defense, just to understand the position, exactly what are you saying? Now the roles are switched, and the Vedantins answers and say, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Okay, that the life is full of doing things, not knowing, and so on. Let me tell you what the understanding of Vedanta is, and now you kindly listen. Right now, up to now, I was listening, you were talking. Let me now talk and you listen. Here's what I think. So we say, by the way, what you said about Siddha Bhodaka Vakya and Karya Bhodaka Vakya is correct. We totally agree with it. So in the meantime, the Karma Kandit will say, see, I told you this was the right thing. So we say, but there are exceptions to this. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to quickly go through and I think summarize it. We say that normally knowledge alone does not solve a problem. Like going to a doctor and knowing what your disease is, you are right. It won't solve your disease. You have to take some medicines for it. However, there are exceptions. If the problem is caused by ignorance, are you listening to me, the Purva Mimamsik? I'm talking, kindly pay attention. If the problem is caused by ignorance, then knowledge alone will do the trick. Nothing else is required. No, nothing more will do, nothing else will do, and nothing more is required. And we have lots of examples, but the best example is the one where I look upon a rope as a snake. Rajju Sarpavat. So there are exceptions. Not many, but there are exceptions. Enough. All you need is one example. So next thing that we need to do is, how do you know that my life's problem is that exception? See, now the Vedantin is talking and the Purva Pakshan is clearing doubts. So now Vedantin says that there are exceptions, Rajju Sarpavat. So he says, okay, I understand what you're saying. Okay, yeah. But now my question to you is, Rajju Sarpa is just an example. It doesn't happen all that much. And you are saying that everybody on this earth, all of us, 6+ billion people, have this kind of a problem. How can I accept that? This is where we say, Tattu Samanvayat. That really the entire Vedas is consistently pointing out this is the situation with all of us. Vakya after Vakya. It's not a casual kind of a thing, but a concerted. This is where the Tatparya Nishchaya comes in. And they say that Brahmavit alone can solve the problem. Not knowledge alone. We'll go through these sentences next class. I just want to give you a summary of it. The entire Vedanta says consistently all of the... Because now we're talking about people that have Shraddha towards Veda. People that don't have Shraddha, then we have a different set of arguments, like the Buddhists and Jains and Christians and Muslims and so on. That's a different issue. I'm talking about people that do have Shraddha towards the Veda, but don't believe that Vedanta is the answer. This is what we're talking about. The entire Veda Shastra is consistently pointing out that our life's problem is the Rajju Sarpavat. So this is the Samanvaya Adhyaya. This is why the Samanvaya, Tattu Samanvaya is an important sutra because it summarizes the entire Shastra as being consistent in pointing this out. So with that, we'll continue our review of the Fourth Sutra, and I close the class at this point. So let's finish our prayers, and then I will see if you have any questions. Om Rahu Grasta Divankarendu Sadrisho Mayat Samachadana Sanmatra Karanopasamharanato Yo Bhut Sushuptaf Puman Pragaswapsamiti Prabodha Samaye Yav Pratyabhigyayate Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Balyadishu api jagradadishu tatha Sarvasvavasthasvapi Vyavritta svanuvartamanam ahamatyantaspurantam sada Swatmanam prakati karoti bhajatam Yo mudraya bhadraya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Vishwam Pashyati Karya Karanataya Swaswami Sambandataha Shishyacharya Tathaiva Pitraputradyatmana Bhedataha Swapne Jagrati Vaya Esha Purusho Maya Paribramitaha Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Bhurambhamsya Nalo Nilo Ambaramaharnartho Himam Shufpuman Ityabhati Characharatmakamidam Yasyaiva Murtyashtakam Nanyat Kinchana Vidyate Vimrashatam Yasmat Parasmat Vibho Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Sarvatmatvamiti Sputikritamidam Yasmadamushminstave Tenasya Shravanat Tadarthamananat Dhyanat cha Sankirtanat Sarvatmatvamahavibhuti Sahitam Syadishwaratvam Swataha Siddhetat Punarashtadha Parinatam Chaishwaryam Avyahatam Ashubhani Nirachaste Tanoti Shubhasantatim Smriti Matrena Yat Pumsam Brahmatan Mangalam Param Ati Kalyana Rupatvat Nitya Kalyana Samshrayat Smartranam Varadatvat Cha Brahmatan Mangalam Viduhu Omkaraschatha Shabdascha Dvavetau Brahmanah Pura Kantham Bhitva Viniryatau Tasman Mangilikau Vubhau Omatha 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 Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Soma Jyotirgamaya Shri Dakshina. Good. Nice to see you all. Wonderful. Arvind, yes, it is. It was good to see a summarized view. Sometimes I think summaries are more useful because when you're going through the detail, the overall sense of what the gist of it is gets lost at times. And besides just the revision, which I have really found to be a great value, I see sometimes I look at a particular talk by one of them, by Swami Maheshananji mostly, that I'm studying, and I want to go to the next talk, but before going to the next talk, I go back to the yesterday's talk that I had already done, and I cannot tell you that there's so many cases. I cannot even tell you that there's so many cases that I don't even go to the next chapter. It's just the same chapter that I was looking at before yields some more insights to me, which it didn't the first time I saw it. This is the way it works. I know Swami Tattvavidananda was saying that, the study of the Vedanta over and over again, it's kind of like taking a dip in the ocean to bring out some jewels. It doesn't mean that the first time you took a deep dive, you will get all the jewels. It might take you again and again. And so this is exactly why I find revision to be very, very useful to me. The tendency of a person is not to revise because, I've already studied it, let's go to the next one. But I think in a more mature mind, the grasping of the truth about something comes better with revision. That's my experience. And I never used to do this. This is only about 10, 12 years old, this habit. Before that, I wouldn't do it. But I found this is to be very useful. Anyway, so the revisions are useful. And hopefully... and the other thing about the revision is that you concentrate on the very essence of it. You don't need to go into all the details. So anyway, it's useful. All right, so good that you're all here, and we will continue an approach to we're coming to the end of the revision, and now we will start a introduction to the rest of the Brahmasutra. I don't know whether I'll be able to. I think maybe just one more class, but I'm not sure. We'll do it. So that's the plan. All right, so with that, if you don't have any other questions, I will say goodbye to you and hopefully see you next week. Om.